Alright, so it's Friday night, and I thought I'd do just a little bit of an update on here on what I'm working on currently and what I'm going to be working on. If you see over here on this part of the keel, I've been sanding. Now, granted, this is the easiest place to sand on the keel. It's the smallest because it's fairly narrow up here, and I can get at it. The rest of it's going to be a lot more difficult. But that's kind of a job I've been dreading ever since I made the keel, was getting that all sanded and faired. So I've started on it, and I got a little sanding done on this side, and I sanded and then put fairing compound on this side. You see, it looks like it got a little bit runny towards the end of my batch. It got a little thinner in the bottom of the pot. Little runs there, but that shouldn't really matter. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of putting a skim coat over the whole thing. And this stuff sands fairly easily, so hopefully it won't be too much more sanding required. I mean, it should be fairly quick. The bulk of the sanding is getting the keel, you know, down to more or less where it needs to be. Because in some places I had put extra epoxy that I had on there, and yeah, I got a little carried away in some cases too. But so this is a tough job. I emptied my vacuum and my barrel, my dust collection barrel out earlier today too, and it was just full of that white epoxy dust. Nasty stuff. But fortunately, using the dust extractor and this big Bosch sander here, it really isn't an issue sanding it. I mean, you don't get any dust in the air whatsoever with that big Bosch and this dust extractor here. So that's good. So we'll see how this works. But my plan is to just kind of chip away at this. It's not a lot of fun working under here, especially back in here again, but it's going to need to be done. So yeah. So we're getting started on that, and I'm just going to, like I said, chip away at that. And I'm just doing the keel right now. The rest of this stuff is going to have to wait until after we get our seams done here, filled and then taped, and then we'll have to do the same thing basically to the whole entire side of the boat. Well, to the whole rest, to the entire hull, actually. And then over here, I did another batch here with thickened, not thickened, but the fairing compound to start bringing this back up to where it needs to be. And yeah, it's going to need several more coats. Probably get another, sand this, get another coat of this stuff in here. This is again where it needs most of the filling. Maybe a little bit in here yet. But then we'll put a layer of fiberglass on here like we did on the other side. And then I can do some finish fairing with this green stuff, this epoxy compound. Get that stuff used up. I actually like the way this stuff goes on better. You can customize it. You can put it on thinner. Like over here, that's actually what I was shooting for. It's almost like a thick primer. It was the idea here. And in this case, like I said, over here, it got a little bit too thin. So when I noticed it getting a little runny, I added a little bit more to it and finished it off. But yeah, but that's the nice thing about that fairing compound is you can kind of customize it to how thick or thin you want it. And then here it was just a little bit thicker because I needed it to stay in place a little better. All right, what else did I... Okay, let me take you up in the boat for just a second. Okay, I did a little cleaning up in here, like I said I was going to. Got things vacuumed and picked up a little bit in here. And I wanted to make sure that my bilge was dry, and so I slid the fridge out of the way, and I can actually reach the keel from under these water tanks. I can stick my arm down there and reach the keel so I could feel that and see if there's any moisture down there whatsoever, and there wasn't. So yeah, that was good. But I had this big fan just laying on here and blowing into the bilge, and you could actually feel the air coming up from around it. I also trimmed cushions here. I had never trimmed these to fit the angles and the width of here, so I got that trimmed and just put an old sheet on there for now. I've actually got the fabric that I'm going to use on these, but it's way too early to be worried about that, so that would just get ruined before we even get a chance to use it, so I'll wait with that. But otherwise, yeah, bilge is dry, everything is looking good in here. Yeah, nothing really changed in there, I guess. But anyway, that's just a little bit of a midweek update, and I'm going to keep on working on the hull. You know, just although in a lot of these videos I'm going to be doing here in the near future are going to be a lot of the same thing. Sanding and fairing and taping, and yeah, it's going to be months and months of that work. So yeah, get ready for it. So I guess another job in the works is getting the bow thruster tube in there. And what I did was I ordered a 185 millimeter hole saw to try to assist with that. And yeah, silly me. When they talked about 185 millimeter tube, diameter tube, I just assumed that was the outside diameter. But it wasn't. Silly me. The tube's like 197 millimeters or whatever. So I ordered another one of these in the correct size now. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to take a piece of 1/2-inch steel rod and weld it in here. So I got a stub end sticking out here that the drill hooks up to. And then the other end is going to be, you know, 5 feet long or whatever, and that's going to go through the boat. You know, that'll go, we'll drill a 1/2-inch hole in here, and then we'll drill a 1/2-inch hole, corresponding hole on the other side, you know, at the right angle, so it goes straight through, you know, on the horizon. And then we'll put that whole rod through there so it keeps the cutting disc lined up. I don't know how it's going to work. May not work. Obviously, with this steep of an angle here, that saw blade is not deep enough to cut all of it out at once. So what I'm thinking is you can go in and cut a little bit, and then come in with a reciprocating saw multi-tool, and then knock that piece out, and then keep on going. And once you get the entire hole drilled out, I can probably temporarily glue a piece of plywood on here with a hole in it so it stays centered, and then bring the tool around to the other side and do the same thing from this side here. I don't know if that'll work. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't know. It's going to be kind of difficult to do that no matter how you, I mean, any way you cut in there, you're not going to have the right angle going in with any saw that you would use. Even if you get the, you know, the oblong shape correct, it's still not going to leave the proper angles on the hull. And we're 2 inches thick here, remember, maybe over 2 inches in some cases. So that's going to be a lot of fairing or a lot of sanding and grinding and whatnot to get that hole at the right angle. So I'm thinking this might just work. I don't know. It's these hole saws aren't that expensive. I don't think it was even 20 bucks. Of course, I had to buy 2 of them now, but yeah, we'll see. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, that's fine too. We can hack it out some other way. But anyway, that's one of the other jobs I got lined up here going to. Alright, so today is like Monday, so a little bit of a midweek update. And I just wanted to show you a little something here. I've been working on fairing out the side of the keel here. And you can see I've got a couple different layers on here. Put a little bit more up here that needs sanded. And I've got back, you know, 10, 12 feet, whatever, back here. And I've started sanding this next, about 8 feet here. And that was the area where I had the leak, the water coming out through the keel. So I had to pull my one strap off here so I could get down here. What I'm discovering, first of all, I guess, on this is this is not a lot of fun sanding this. I've got places where I've got epoxy, regular structural thickened epoxy on here, and that doesn't sand very well, and the wood itself too is pretty hard sanding. So I'm not trying to go all the way down to smooth this whole surface down just by sanding it, because obviously between the planks here we've got these little radiused edges on the wood that, you know, create a little cavity. So what I'm doing, as you can see up there, is I'm basically just putting a skim coat over the whole thing and then sanding down high spots. And then the actual sanding part comes when as you're sanding down the filler there. And anyway, in here, this is the area where we had the leak, right in here. And what I did was, I've got this filled with, and this is structural epoxy here now, that's filled in there in that crack. But what I did was I took my multi-tool with that real coarse rasp, and I actually ground in there, you know, a good 1/4, 3/8 of an inch or so, over at least the, you know, the main part of that there. And ground that out, and what I found was, it wasn't open across this whole, you know, say 3 feet here. There's only like 3 little spots that had actually where you could see the copper naphthenate had flowed through there. 3 little spots, 3 little channels. So the vast majority of this is still bonded, or always was bonded. But anyway, so I ground that out and I filled it with structural epoxy, and so we've got that filled in, which would probably be enough to do the trick in terms of sealing it up in and of itself. But the whole thing's going to get skim coated, sanded, and then we'll put fiberglass cloth on there, and yeah, whatever filling and fairing we have to do after the fiberglass cloth is on. So there's going to be a lot of work here, and sanding down here, like I've said so many times before, is not fun. So I figure if I can get 16 feet of the boat done a week, at least mostly done. I'm not going to have the fiberglass and everything on, but if I can get the sanding and fairing and all that done, 16 feet a week, that'd be 3 weeks I'd have the side of the boat done or thereabouts. 6 weeks have the other side done. That won't be so bad. But then of course we still have to put fiberglass on it. And then we're going to have to start working down here to get all these seams filled and taped. Although I don't think that's going to be nearly as big a job, especially on this side, which I've got sanded. I've got the plywood sanded ready really for paint. So we're going to have to fill the screw holes, of course, and then sand all that down, and then fill and tape the seams. And of course they'll need to be, you know, filled and faired and whatnot as well. But yeah, it shouldn't be too horrible bad. The idea is to have the outside of the hull done and the deck on in fiberglass and everything. So probably next May or whatever, we can get the boat moved out of the building and start building the pilot house. And I think I'll be able to do that. It's like I said, it's a lot of work, and sanding all this keel down. I'm using my big sander with the dust removal, which helps. And I'm using 40 grit sandpaper, which is pretty aggressive, but even at that, I'm finding I'm having to replace that sandpaper pretty frequently to keep it cutting adequately. And yeah, it's hard on my shoulders. I'll probably be pretty buff by the time we're done. Yeah, we'll see about that. Today I got another shipment of some odds and ends in, and I got my new hole saw in. So at some point here, maybe next week, I can get this thing, try to get this thing set up for, you know, I wanted to weld that 1/2 inch shaft in there. So we'll see about getting this thing set up to do that. But I just checked it on the actual tube, thruster tube, and it's fine. So that's where we stand as of today, which is Monday. Alright, so I got a piece of 1/2-inch steel bar, and Archie approves. And I cleaned it up a little bit, and I welded my saw blade onto there. And I TIG welded on both sides. No idea if it's going to hold or not. No idea if it's going to actually work or not. But if you look at this, if I roll this on the table here, I mean, boy, it looks like I got it on there nice and square. I don't see any wobbles whatsoever. I don't think I could have asked for much better than that. So, we'll give it a shot. I got the hole drilled through the side of the boat. Big John came out and helped with that just for a minute or two. And yeah, later on here, once this cools down, I might give it a shot. Okay, before I get too far along here, I wanted to show you what I'm doing. This is the hole saw. That's the appropriate size. And as you can see there, I welded that just real quick with the TIG welder. And I used my real long 1/2-inch drill bit, my 5-foot long drill bit, and we got a spot marked inside, and then I drilled through it level, used a level on the drill bit to drill out this way to get this first 1/2-inch hole established. And then I ran the drill bit through there with a level on it, and I marked it in here inside, and then I drilled the other hole on this side. So that keeps us lined up, more or less. And this is working all right. It's kind of going the way I expected. Obviously, it would be nice if the cutter was thicker. You know, if it was 6 or 8 inches, we would just be able to do it all in one shot. But anyway, so as I was going here, I've been cutting out the little pieces of wood with my multi-tool, just going in there and buzzing those pieces out. Otherwise, I'm bottoming out inside the tool there on pieces of wood here. So I got to keep cutting those out, you know, just keep going. But the problem I was going to have here then, I was going to get rid of my hole. So I got nothing to center it on. So I don't know if you can see up in there, but I screwed a 2x4 in there and then drilled a hole through it. Well, actually, I drilled a hole through it at the proper angle, took the screws out, slid the board onto the drill bit, or this, not drill bit, but the shaft, and then screwed the board on. That way I had it perfectly centered and aligned in there. So now I can continue cutting this out, and we'll have some support here for the cutter. And yeah, it's going right. This would be a lot easier if I had somebody else here. I've been spending a lot of time running up and down into the boat, and every time I go to readjust this, I have to pull this thing out. I've got to run up in the boat and stick at the other end of this rod in the other side of the boat, because it's just too floppy to hit that hole there. So anyway, but yeah, it's going right. I think it's going to work. We'll see what happens here in the end, but it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's looking pretty good. So yeah, we're going to carry on. Hello, welcome back to the boat shop. Today is the 18th of September of 2024, and here you'll see where the bow thruster is going to go, or the other side of the bow thruster is going to come out right there. And you saw in that last clip, I had made pretty good progress, and now, you know, I'm 90% of the way there. But the problem I'm going to have is this 2x4 that I put in up here to help guide the shaft here. It's bottomed out now. The saw blade has bottomed out on that, and we would have cut through it here shortly anyway. So that's going to have to come out, and I'm not sure. I'm hoping that maybe now that I've got enough of this cut out, that I can finish cutting this last little bit here without having to have that support in here. That just the wood around here will hold the saw blade in position. But this is working all right. Like I said, I think in that last clip last night, it's probably actually working better than I expected. Yeah. I suspect what I'll have to do is probably have to clean this up a little bit, and then I'll put epoxy in here and fill it, and get it all sealed up, and then when the tube goes in, we'll put even more epoxy in there, and then we'll fiberglass it from the inside. I'm not sure what we'll do on the outside. Probably put a layer of 10 ounce just on the outside here to help seal it and hold it in place. I don't know. We'll see when we get to that point. But yeah, this is working, and it's going all right. Over here, I have still been putting more fairing compound on here. This is that Total Boats epoxy fairing compound. And I think once I sand this down, we will be to the point where I can put my fiberglass cloth on here. And yeah, we'll be 95% of the way there too. And over here, I've been doing a little more, work along the keel. And probably once I get this bow thruster hole done, I'll do some more work here. But you know what? It's been summertime yet. It's September 18th, and it's like 85 degrees outside, and it's warm. So I've been kind of hoping for cooler weather so this work goes a little easier. But yeah, that there is saying 90, but it's not quite that warm out. But yeah, but we're getting there, so we just keep plugging away at it. I don't really have anything else of note to report, so I will leave it at that for this week, and I will talk to you again next week.